All right, we are back already. We are back already. I thought, should I take a 5 minute break, 15-minute break? I just freshened up and we are already back. You guys know it's Watch Talk here and Style Talk. As you guys have seen, we have talked a lot about shoes, actually. I'll just welcome MCM as a new member. I really appreciate you, my friend. Basils is, of course, a member and a moderator. And he has just started off his own channel. So please support him if you can. Subscribe. I already have. So I look forward to seeing it grow. It's always better together. I also think that Basil was going to come up on this stream when it's convenient for him to talk about a few different ideas he has on the community and its relationship with um, with the gray market overall. Let's leave it at that without really broaching it any wider or putting any words in Basil's mouth. I'm sure he can speak. I'm sure he would like to speak his piece. So I will just start with talking a little bit about my content on Instagram, and we'll go from there. I've shared in the unboxing stream that I just did that in the last week, my video on the AP Royal Oak chronograph, that is a pièce unique gifted by Jean Todt to Michael Schumacher in the Christmas of 2003 for his 6th championship. That piece has made it quite big, has gone viral, so to speak. Of all the pieces I have shown from his collection, that was the one that's got most interest, even though I kind of like the sets that he has from the FP Jean Ruthenium collection as well. Of course, his 6262 Paul Newman was also a big hit. And both of these videos were stolen quite widely, actually. But in fact, when it matters, platforms like High Snobiety, platforms like Hypebeast actually contacted me personally and did it under my conditions, so to speak. Especially in the case of Hypebeast, I appreciate them. This came out in hype time as well. And that was some great exposure for me, really. So I really appreciate that they took care of that and did it properly. We didn't have a chance to talk about this when Ali was on, but we had started talking about my recent visit to the first lab, to the first horological lab MNF Max Buser and friends have in the US. They just opened a joint in Via Rodeo, which is at the mouth of Rodeo Drive here in Los Angeles, in Beverly Hills specifically. And it's really a beautiful space, very intimate space that has all these works of kinetic art in addition to the watches themselves. So you will find a few different examples of both of Max Buser's horological machines and some of his legacy machines, but also pieces of kinetic art like this, the Stingray, which is a work by, I want to say, Apical Reform, pardon me, a design company that operates out of Hyderabad, India. I really like this piece. It literally mimics the movements of a Stingray, electric operated. And there were just so many different pieces in that space that I really liked. And Jeffrey Evans, who is the boutique manager, was also great conversationalist, great person who is very much invested and emotionally invested in Max Buser MNF as a project. So I really I was grateful to have given that tour and welcomed by him in that space. I don't know what is going on with the viewer counts, Ali, but that's quite all right. You know, we have never done things strictly by the numbers in this channel, so I don't, you know, I'm not fazed by them going up, going down, or staying at a certain level. For me, of course, it matters because it affects the channel's revenue. You know, at this subscriber level, obviously, we don't get much from ads at all. But obviously, the more the community is expanded, the more that's crowd-funded operation in a way that's really subsisting on your support increases, and that's of course always important. I hope you guys can hear me clearly. I changed the microphone's position a little bit, so hopefully we didn't lose anything by that. Don't forget to hit the like button while you're at it. I don't know if I showed this, but this, once again, now that I'm featured on Hypebeast and iSnobiety, I have been feeding the beast inside, feeding the Hypebeast inside. In one of my favorite vintage clothes shops, Wooden Sleepers. This is Brian, based in Brooklyn, who has a great selection usually. So I do encourage you to check it out. The brand is called Wooden Sleepers. I found this sweater, which is very classic ivy or collegiate style with a boat neck. And it has this PP, which looks every bit of the kind of logo that Patek Philippe has used in the past and is using now on a lot of merch. So I really like that, but apparently it's like a mid-century thing from Poly Prep, which is a prep school, middle school and high school from Brooklyn. Park Slope specifically. I think at least the middle school is in Park Slope. The high school might be in another part of Brooklyn. But anyway, I'll style it as if it were. Patek Philippe sweater. So that's my new swag that's coming in. Although I'm an AP guy now, I have nothing against Patek. It's the best brand for old souls like me. This is a very special version of the 5130G that's coming up in the next Christie's auction that we will go through. As you can see, the movement has the Geneva seal. So it's one of those early 2000 pieces. I mean the year. This is a good demonstration of how you kind of travel the world with that 10 o'clock pusher. And as you can see, there's a single diamond set where London is. So it's as if that orients the traveler who would wear this world time piece. That is the Metropole. Beautiful, beautiful piece. That's a 5130G. And as much as the Pontiff loves the 5110, I think the mainstream collector, when it comes to these more contemporary world timepieces by Patek, certainly veer towards the 5130 because of its oversized case that scales right under 40 millimeters. I think the official measurement might be 39.5. I like the observatory style hands, but most of all, when it comes to the world time, I really like the micro rotor movement, of course, with a 22 karat rotor there. Micro rotor movements have an interesting place in the history of self-winding watches. People don't always get the story right, or don't really think about it, I guess, too much because we take it for granted. But Rolex was an early pioneer, and they owe it to those two magical words that they patented quite early on, and the functions they refer to. And those are Oyster, Perpetual. Oyster, of course, refers to their famous weatherproof, dustproof, waterproof case, which is something they still keep. And Perpetual actually refers to their self-winding movement, with a full rotor that they had patented in 1933, if I'm not mistaken. And for 2 decades, no one else actually could make self-winding movements in that same way. So a lot of different companies came up with these halfway solutions, like bumper calibers, right? You know, in that were designed with a rotor that would not revolve entirely around the movement and would kind of spring back with a bumper. Micro rotor was also, in a way, a halfway solution because the winding of the smaller off-center rotor was, for initial movements especially, a little finicky, a lot less efficient. That's something that was taken care of quite fast. But obviously, from a perspective that includes both a utilitarian bent and an aesthetic bent, a micro rotor movement does two things. One, it gives you, since it sinks the rotor to the level of the bridge plates, it basically gives you a thinner movement by definition. By definition, micro rotor self-winding movements are thinner than movements with a full rotor. And for those who care a little bit about movement finishing, even if it might not be done in that rarefied scale that independent watchmakers today do it, for those of us who care a little bit about movement architecture, of course, you get a full view of the mechanism, or almost a full view, at least, the way you do with hand-wound movements as well. And I think Patek's Caliber 240, which was actually designed by someone that they got from Université Genève, Gérard Barret, is one of the great examples of that heritage, and it's still something they use in their world time watches. It was a beautiful, beautiful, unique piece. Okay, that being said, I think we can go back to talk about the Phillips auction that I was examining with you earlier in the week. I was supposed to catch up with you again on Tuesday, and in fact, we even had planned a segment with the professor and possibly also Aussie Expat jumping on to talk about the new releases. But that didn't happen because of technical difficulties on my end. So I do apologize for that. But here we are back, and maybe in a little bit, when the UK wakes up, the professor can jump on and we can even talk about some of the Watches and Wonders releases too. But for now, we are back to Phillips Geneva auction number 19, which is a 2-day event that's going to take place on May 11th and May 12th. I sent the link there. If you want me to focus on a watch here or on a couple of watches, send in the lot numbers and I will dive right in to dissect them with as much historical and horological detail I can muster. The interesting thing about this auction is that it includes some 45 or 44, I think, pieces from Guido Mondani's collection. So more than 36 pieces among more than 200 lots actually come directly from the Guido Mondani collection. Guido Mondani is an Italian collector who might be known to you with these books that are very high on production quality, but a little low on substance, as I mentioned before, which is okay, which is great. You know, for people who are looking for coffee table books rather than education and knowledge, they can serve a certain purpose. You guys know we do something different on this channel. And this is what we will continue to do. We are looking at the Smurf. This is lot number 20. And it is a piece actually from the Guido Mondani collection, as it happens. Lot number 20, a Rolex Submariner 116619 LB. We have... Oh, drop the link. So I will have a guest. Nice. Link. I don't know why I didn't do that. You're absolutely right, St. Peter. And I would love to see you on on the panel. But yeah, a couple of days ago, we were marveling, because I posted a Smurf that Christie's is gonna sell in the spring on my Instagram. But Captain Sabi and I wondered, that was a time for Rolex where you had these two heavyweights as part of the Submariner collection. You had the white gold Smurf, and in stainless steel you had the Hulk, right? And it's compared to today's lineup, that seems like much more exciting. So I feel like a lot of what Rolex did is a little bit self-inflicted as well, because obviously, as far as I know, they're not too happy about the Submariner kind of taking a back seat, or you might say kind of receding into the background within the professional lineup, even though I think it still beats in terms of sheer numbers and sales both the Daytona and the GMT Master. But there's no denying that in the collector's imagination, those two lineups have kind of overtaken it. St. Peter, how are you doing, man?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How
Oh,
are you?
oh man. I'm really good tonight. I'm like actually really good.
Tell me, are you half baked or something?
No, it's like, so I went to this, it was like a post-mortem watch meetup of Watches and Wonders.
Is that like to, just collectors talking about watches and wonders? Is that what you mean?
So this is what I'll say. One of the first, I tried on probably maybe 24 watches.
Mm.
One of the first half dozen watches that I tried on was a titanium MBNF Perpetual LM Evo.
Nice.
So it's
That's not a
like
bad one. That's like your dream watch, right? Your ultimate grail
uh,
in a way.
ultimate grail. And you know that. I mean, I told you. So I'm talking to this guy. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you know, he takes this thing off and he hands it to me. I'm like, what? I'm like, oh, how do I put it on? Like, I don't know. Like, how do I put it on? But I had a really long conversation with him. And what's interesting is, so I'm like, how do you, so I'm just trying to pick his brain. I'm like, all right, you have this insane watch. And I didn't want to make assumptions about his appearance because it was unassuming, right? Like the way that he presented himself was kind of like,
Hmm.
oh, if you weren't looking at the watch, you wouldn't have guessed anything. Right? So well, and I told him the story. I was like, yeah, Max used that watch time 2 years ago, and I want to talk to him, but I didn't. And and this guy's like, he was like, I waited for days to talk to Max, and I still couldn't talk to him. And I think part of it is just, well, if you actually really want to talk to him, you just have to force your way in there and be like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
And so I was asking him, I was like, so wait a second, like, did you buy the watch from pre-owned? You buy it from Cellini? Like, how did you get this thing?
Okay.
Like, where did you get this? And I can't, to be honest, I can't remember the exact story. I know it wasn't from Cellini. He had been talking to Cellini for a while, but I think it came through MBNF Direct. I was like, well, wait, was it through Watches of Switzerland? I know they sell MBNF. Was it through Chile? He was like, no, it came through MBNF directly. And
Okay.
so it was like white strap, like it was like that watch, titanium, but with a green back, like the green plate. So that's like the blue plate. And I was like, but wait, is it the Evo? Is it the zirconium? And he was like, no, it's titanium. So there's all this
Nice.
nuance. Yeah, there's all this nuance. That's it. That's the one right there. And I'll send you, but with the green main plate. But the thing is, like, I have all these photos because I had this great experience, and I told you I was like, "Hey, I'm going to this watch meetup. I'll report when
Yeah,
I get there."
I remember
And
that.
yeah, and it was really nice because when I showed up, um, I immediately was like, I don't know who the fuck these people are. I recognized a couple people, so I waved to them. I was like, I'll get a drink and I'll hang out for a while. And then there were some people. There was a guy who I talked to who had this beautiful. It was the rectangular Royal Oak quartz.
Hmm.
Like the Royal Oak from like the '80s era, full
Yeah,
quartz,
6,005. Yeah.
two tone.
Hmm.
And I saw him at a Malika's lecture at HSNY, which I had previously told you about was the time that I went there, and there was a guy who was like, "Oh, you're the guy with the Pasha," which to me was ridiculous because it's like, "Oh, who would observe that?" But the only reason why he asked me is because I sat right next to him, and it turned out
Okay.
that guy was like a watchmaker,
Uh-huh.
and the whole thing. So anyway, so I see this guy and I'm like, "Hey, were you at the last HSNI lecture?" He's like, "Yeah, I was there." And I was like, "I saw your watch." And he just immediately handed it to me, and I took off my watch and I tried it on, and then I said, "Damn, that's really good." Like those rectangular. It's not the iconic jumbo or even the reduced or the bigger. But it's this weird quartz, super thin. The case is just insanely thin. Yeah, that's it. And so he had the two-tone version of that, which I tried on, and it was so good. And it
That's
just
Jean-Claude Biver wearing it while he was working at AP, late
and
70s.
and it looks great. And the bracelet, you get the whole like dazzle, like disco ball, like the thing that I genuinely believe, you know, like the Jonta design, this aspect of the bracelet is faceted, and every facet, when you rotate it, it reflects the light. It's brushed. It's the same brush finish on all the surfaces, but when you move it, pop, 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 it just pops in a certain way,
Yeah.
and you get the full effect with this piece, and it's
It's
like,
you know
okay,
we were talking about that in about Rolex as well. I mean, on this channel we had this conversation. I don't know if you were part of it, but there is a sense that sometimes two-tone watches, especially with watches like the Royal Oak, which has this sort of intricate finish, the level of dazzlement and eye-catching and whatever else, it can be actually more dramatic than a solid gold watch, I feel, because of the
100%,
contrast.
100%.
Dexterious, by the way, thank you so much. Waving back at you, $10 Canadian. I mean, you all know that the official currency of this channel is the shekel, but Canadian dollars are quickly becoming an alternative. I have a lot of Canadian fans, apparently. I appreciate that.
Well,
Um,
hey, I will say this. I met some really beautiful people tonight. I met a young man who works for the 1916 company. You know,
yeah, what used to be Watchbox and Govberg and all these people, right? That's
yeah,
leading.
yeah, and he was a conspicuous individual, but not ostentatious. So I was like, I know that guy. Where the fuck have I seen that guy before? And then finally, I was like, wait, you work for 1960? And he was like, yes, I do. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And in New York, it's like it's funny. It's like there's some people who they care about their visibility. There's other people who don't. you know me, obviously, of course I care about my visibility. I don't want anybody to know who the fuck I am unless there's someone who's like, yeah, I know you and I trust you and we can do that. But there's this weird, like, how visible do you want to be and how engaged
Of
do you
course.
want to be? And it's not that I obsess over that or I care about it that much, but to me, what I realize is there is this kind of, like, there's this barrier, right? Where if you cross over that, it could potentially change either your engagement or your access or however you want to describe it. So I won't necessarily say that, like, that was my experience tonight, but it's a constant reminder of, I think, the industry in general is like a place like that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, 1916 Company has actually a pretty good joint, I think, by you guys, which you should probably visit, just to enjoy the space, if nothing else.
Well, so the person who I met, who is you know, a young and competent and actually, like, pretty, like, I was impressed by how engaged they were for their age and their experience with the company. I said, "Hey, what's up? Like, what neighborhood are you living in?" Right? And so he's like, "Well, I'm living over here." I was like, "Okay, cool. Well, outside of this watch meetup, there's another small watch meetup that we do that's closer to where you are at, but it's really low key."
Mhm.
And they were kind of intrigued by that, and I was like, "Give me your card, like, I'll reach out to you." And but they're also telling me about all their, like, high profile clients and all the business they do, and I was like, "Well, I can't, like, I'm not trying to do any of that. I'm just trying to be like, this is like a cool world to be plugged into, and it's nice to meet people who are passionate about this stuff." And it was fun to meet someone who wasn't just interested in, oh, how can you advance me in, how can you take me to the next level? It's like, here's my vision outside of the industry, and maybe the industry helps me get there, maybe not, but that's what I care about. Like, that's actually really refreshing. Like, it's really nice to meet people on the periphery of
That
the.
was the 1916 person you were talking about?
Yeah, I mean, and at this point in time, I don't want to, I don't want to, I don't want to define the interaction, like, too explicitly, but, like, I met this person and I let them know, like, hey, I've been a fan of Tim's work for a very long time. Like, I've been watching Watchbox, but, like, I've never gone to Watchbox. I've never been this person who's like, hey, like, I'm watching you guys on YouTube. But, like, I recognize this guy and I was like, you look really familiar. And
Yeah.
and I was like, "Oh, you're like, are you 1916?" He's like, "Yeah, like, I'm 19." And I was like, "Oh, that makes sense." You know? So we had this whole conversation. He told me a little bit about the brand and his experience there, but he also told me about, like, his own goals, like, outside of the brand. Like, it wasn't just about, how do I navigate this corporate position? How do I,
Mm.
go from where I am here to. He was like, I have these goals that are bigger than whatever this job is. And I was like, that's cool. Like, so, like, we had, like, a kind of, I don't know. It's like, to me, it's fascinating, but outside of the industry, I don't know if people would be interested. But I was like, how do you get what you want in life? Like, what are your long-term goals? Do you see yourself as being, like, we had this whole conversation about, like, are you a watchmaker? Like, do you want to design watches? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And the one thing I will say is they were like, yeah, I know I do not want to be in sales. They're just like sales is, like, for me, that's not my goal. And I was like, okay, that's really interesting for me to hear, because I know some people who are into sales, and like, they do quite well, right? Like, they're you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know actually. I mean, it's become a thing now. I guess in the last few years, but people, by and large, people go in and out of sales jobs, and as you know, a lot of times in the luxury space, um, people are really transitory. They would work with one brand and then move to another one, then move to another one. Then, most people actually have a vision, like you said, to not do sales and as soon as possible. That's why it's really precious. I mean, I appreciate that you're sharing this, but I'm more impressed by the Mike Manjos of
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
whole establishment. Speaking of the 1916 company, people who have been part of those businesses for decades, because
Right.
that's
Right.
that's the actual outlier.
Hmm.
Almost everyone comes into the sales space by saying, "I don't want to do sales." And some end up sticking to it for decades, say, and that brings out something really special, because you know if they're actually really passionate about what they sell, like Mike Manjos is, who has a very impressive Alan Gonzune collection, actually. So you should, in fact, not only visit 1916 Company, but make sure that you somehow talk to Manjos when you do that. Make sure that he's in house. I don't think he's actually stationed in New York. I think he still operates out of Philadelphia, but I'm sure if they do a special event, etc., in the New York space, he might drop by and
Hmm.
try to talk to him. He has one of the most impressive Lange collections that I could ever fathom. So, to me, that's very interesting. Tim Masso, I have nothing against the guy, but I always found it very weird that he almost has no watches. You know, um, Nowadays, especially, at some point he had something of a JLC collection. He doesn't even have that anymore. He has, like, I think, one free watch that someone gave him. I don't even remember the brands, but I just find that extremely suspicious and inauthentic, right? I mean, to me, that's salesmanship, right? That's what salespeople do. They sell you something that they don't themselves actually have as part of their life. Whereas you have a lot of very weathered and experienced people who might not occupy that sort of public space, but who are 15 muscles put together. I mean, I wouldn't even
Well, hey,
compare.
listen, I don't. I'm not going to challenge you on that sentiment. What I will say though is, I was the fucking watch nerd with the ooh, look at this. People are like, what the fuck is that? And I was like, it's fucking Pasha, motherfucker. You know. And to be honest with you, I was surprised at how many people I was like, oh no, 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 that's cool. And so the funny thing about this is, like, so the guy from the 1916 company, he had Pelagos 39 with like a aftermarket titanium jubilee bracelet, and that's how we started our conversation. I was like, what is that watch? Like, that's crazy, because I saw it and I was like, and but there was another person there who also had a Pelagos 39 with like the standard, just the whatever the Tudor calls like the Oyster version of their bracelet, and the standard clasp and all that stuff. And I just remember thinking like, oh, okay, like that's cool. Like, I almost bought that watch. So before I bought the Pasha, which, Ozzy and some other people gave me shit about when I got it, it people are like, why? Or I remember Swiss was like, I remember when they released this, and I asked myself, who would buy that? Like, I remember that's what Swiss said.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, like, when I bought it,
And
like,
that was, by the way, a good impression of Swiss's accent too. Perfect. Great job.
Well, I listen to that guy, like I'm sorry, Swiss, like if I haven't done a good enough job, one of these days I'll nail it. But I,
You did well.
even before I left the fucking boutique, I remember my essay was like, yeah, if you go to a meetup, nobody else is gonna have that. I was like, yeah, you're right.
And
Like,
certainly, if anybody else has it, they wouldn't have paid as much as you did.
of
So
course not. It
you
would have
are
been a
great.
fraction
You're
of the
doing
price.
great.
It would have been a fraction of the price. Um, but but still, it's funny. It's like, so I'm telling everybody, I was like, oh my God, look at this. Like, look at this bullshit. Like, this strap is from Portugal. Like, the bracelet's sharp, cost a fortune. Can you believe this? Like, I'm telling everybody, I'm like, look at this. They're like, that's nice. And I'm like, no, but the bracelet is sharp. Like, this is a travesty. Like, I'm like, fuck Richemont. Like, fuck this shit. Like, and oh, by the way, oh, how dare they give me a Portuguese strap? Like I want a French. Like this is Cartier. Like I want a French strap. And
You,
so this guy,
I
this
don't
guy
think
who I talked to was
I
like,
don't think
no,
that's
no,
how it works, man.
I know, but like this guy who I talked to was like, no, no, there's a region of Portugal that produces really high quality leather products. Like I was like, okay, I believe you, but still, it's like I wanted to say S- Switzerland or France or whatever,
Well, by the way, the again, this is something we talk about a lot with other friends as well, and it's not just Cartier, but a lot of brands that we like used to have whole lines that were, partly made in the US, partly in France. But with time, as they grew, as the bottom line became more important, um, Portugal seems to be one of the best trade-offs, right? One of the best compromises. Slovakia is another because you are still operating within the EU region, but obviously it just costs much less to make these things. Now, when it comes to you know I mean, I care about these things at a different level when it comes to sports jackets and this kind of stuff too, but arguments can be made. If you are buying something off the rack, does it really matter whether it's made in Slovakia or Portugal or the garment district in New York City? Now, i th- I say it does, but you might say something else. When it comes to the leather strap of a watch, which which is really not, it shouldn't be the kind of penny pinching that a brand
Mm,
like Cartier does, because Cartier stands for something
right,
else. I
of
mean,
course, of course.
it's strange that they would cut costs at something like that, because if that Portuguese leather is so special for them, they
Yeah,
can still
market it.
get that leather and finish it in France or finish it in Switzerland. I mean, it's no one is fooling anybody with that kind of talk. That is disappointing, but again, not as disappointing as what you mentioned about the bracelet. And
Sharp ass fucking bracelet.
you are
I
someone you are
I
someone
told
who works with
everybody.
metal,
I told
so
everybody at this
you
event
know
tonight.
you
I
know you know how things work.
I
You work with metal,
I
so
t-
it's
I
not like
told
you don't
I
know what
told
you're talking about.
everybody at this event tonight. I was like, I almost brought this bracelet here, but I was embarrassed because of how fucking sharp it was. And then they were like, no, no, you should bring it. Next time you should bring it. I'm like, okay, cool. Next time I'll bring it. And then I'm just gonna complain about the the bullshit like that you have to pay. And the thing is like, so my entry point when I was like, how do I critique this? Right? Because some people who I talk to, like they work for Omega. Like I talked to a guy who worked for Omega, and he handed me his it was like a Seamaster, but it was like the OG James Bond Seamaster, like the
Mhm.
whatever. I'm not gonna memorize the Omega references, but it was like the blue Pierce Brosnan era, you know. And it was, the bracelet was super, it felt great. I put it on my wrist. I was like, man, this is so nice. And I handed him the watch, and he was like, this is really cool. He was like, what is this watch? Like, I told him the whole story. I was like, dude, the bracelet is sharp as fuck. Like, it's bullshit. It's like, it's bullshit. And like, I was like ashamed to even bring it here because I didn't even want to show it to people. But at the same time, it's like,
Well,
no,
why?
like I should show it to people and be like,
I don't.
isn't this fucked up? Like, isn't
I
this
mean,
bullshit?
that's
Like,
actually no. You should show it to
of
Cartier
course.
and get a new bracelet. That's what you should
It,
first do. I mean, you can still complain to the larger public as you should, but they should give you a new bracelet. No?
well, tonight, my main point was saying I walked into the brand new Soho boutique and I said, I'm interested in this reference. I want it. And they were like, sorry, not available. And then I walked down the street to my AD. 2 weeks later, I had the piece. Like, that to me is an
Mm.
interesting story, right? Like, what does that say? Like just in general about how this whole process works, right? Like, you go to the brand directly and you say, I have no history with you, but I I know about your releases. I know this is a novelty from this year. I could talk to you about the history of the brand. I could talk to you about influential collectors that are part. And no, no, we don't care. We don't know who you are. All right, cool. Like, I'm gonna walk down the street and buy it from one of your authorized retailers. And so when I went to my guy, he was like, yeah, no problem. Like, 2 weeks later, like, just no question. That to me is really interesting. And so when, I talked to my friend, and I told you a
So
little bit
wait,
about.
I still don't understand how this connects to the fact that you should get a new bracelet. Did you not talk to them about this situation?
No, I actually haven't gone back to them, but I think the fact that I bought the piece from, I, all right, so I want to go to the mansion. Like, I want to schedule an appointment where like I go to the mansion like in Manhattan, and I'm like, this is ridiculous that you would sell this like limited production piece that's only out for a year, and you would sell it, either through an authorized dealer or through a retail location.
But
But
the bracelet is the same. Who cares about limited production? Just get it changed, man. I don't get this whole
oh, no,
ordeal
no.
that
All
you.
right, so here's the thing. So I don't know if you recall, but there was that watchmaker who I met at
Yeah.
HSNY who used to, like, he was like an essay for to know, you
Okay.
know. And he told me, he was like, yeah, those Pasha bracelets, they've always been sharp. Like, he basically was just like, yeah, that's just how they are. They're sharp. I was like,
Okay.
what? I was like, I, how is this, like, it just blows my mind that you could be a brand that is synonymous with like luxury jewelry, and then at the same time, like, you'll sell a bracelet that actually doesn't feel good. Like when you put it on the wrist, like it doesn't feel good. You know. So
That's sad. That's
right,
that's really sad.
but like, is this just me being like, oh well, I have an Oyster bracelet, so that's the standard now. I'm holding everybody to the standard of the Oyster.
Well, of course, as you should. I mean, most will not live up to it. In fact, Rolex's own product from decades ago doesn't live up to it. But at least in that case, you have an entire object that has a different kind of charm, that belongs to a different era, that can have a different meaning. Whereas this is something that you bought in year 2024, um, and it's brand spanking new, and it should at the level of Cartier, which is now the second biggest watch brand in the
Dude,
entire
that's the
space.
thing that fucking blows my mind. It's like, you guys are at this level and you're selling this shit, right? And like, I get it. Okay, your sales are up, like you're making good money, but really, like it's
That's disappointing.
I and I don't know. There's just this part of me that as much as I want to keep supporting the brand because I love the history and the design,
Mm.
there's a certain part of me that's like, how long is this going to last? Like how many years are they going to be able to like string people along with like new iterations of 100-year-old designs, and say, okay, oh well, we've kind of we've changed the colorway, or we've done this and that, and it, I don't know, like maybe I'm just not cool enough to, or maybe I'm not good enough to be one of those people who can influence their
No, I mean,
decision making.
you see, as the individual customer, we might in fact be powerless at the level you are speaking of. I mean, I think you should still make an issue out of it, and you should still at least find a way to register your complaint, even if someone else tells you that's how those bracelets are. You have a look, you are not even
Yeah,
like
no, that's
me.
right. That's right.
You are someone who works with metal, so you can actually make a case and potentially teach something to them,
Of
and
course.
maybe you can make a difference. But the more important thing is, look, we were just talking about the Frank Müller lighter watch, the table lighter they did with the St. Dupont, and which is a pretty cool thing. But the reason I brought up Frank Müller is it was all the rage in the 90s, right? Before all the other independents who are making these numbers now and who have this sort of mainstream recognizability. Frank Müller was one of the pioneers, but he was certainly the pioneer of having achieved commercial success and having kind of insinuated himself into the mainstream consciousness. People love the shape, the centric curvex, the classic Art
Hmm.
Deco shape,
Hmm.
etc. And
Is that
everyone
the
was
tonneau,
crazy
the
about it.
tonneau case?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then what happened? The brand is practically gone now. I mean, they're still selling some watches. Once every so often, they have an
Who
interesting
who
design.
who would buy one of their watches? Like, I have
Exactly.
no, I've
So,
never met anyone
but
who's like, I'm excited about.
all of this goes into saying Cartier might be number two today.
Right,
Uh,
right.
10 years, 20 years later, they can be completely forgotten again
Yeah.
about watches. So
I think it would
they
be
cannot
important,
take their
especially for
time.
someone who is like, this is the thing that like rubs me the wrong way. It's like, yeah, well, I might not have like spent a lot of money with your brand, but like I'm here like telling you like I love this shit. I really like these designs. Like I can talk to you about the historical significance of them and like why it makes sense, why it doesn't make sense. So, that being said, like, w- you know, but I don't know, who the fuck knows. Part of me is just thinks that there's a certain tier that you get to, and even though they're in the number two position, you still just can't even like when you look at like the Oyster bracelet or the Jubilee or the President or any one of these bracelets, right? That comes out of the Rolex catalog. It just no one's going to be able to compare to that for the same price point. Like they've just figured out a way to automate their high-end production and be able to market it and say this is Swiss. Like this is the pinnacle of Swiss watchmaking. However, they've done it in a way that is automated and no one else will know. Yeah. Like maybe they just have one guy, like literally maybe it's the difference of having one guy take it over to a machine and oh, those sharp edges, like we're just gonna buzz those off. And the other companies are like, oh, we don't want to pay that one guy. And
I
that's
mean,
it.
look,
It might be that simple. Like.
no, like you said, it's basically practically a missing step in the process, and I'm sure it might be even automated, but I mean, it's between what you said about the leather strap and what you said about the bracelet. it's certainly about cutting corners. And honestly, you know, this channel has shown and also received a lot of love from Richemont since it was founded, right? You know, especially at Jaeger-LeCoultre, I'm always treated so well. At the Lange Boutique in Costa Mesa, same thing. But listen, they cut a lot of corners. Like with Jaeger-LeCoultre, that's certainly been the case over the last 2 decades. Look at one guilloche dial from early 2000s and look at the guilloche dial that JLC does now. You cannot tell me it's done on the same hand-operated machines. You just can't. Even in the early 2000s, of course, and you know, this is the judgment of people, of the watchmakers, where at Jan Shapiro Watches, you know, Josh himself
The
is great,
ultimate guilloche maker.
and
The ultimate.
his team is great too. And you know, they were looking at my grand dates, and you know, they were like, "Oh, this is great work," but you know, it's clearly sandblasted at the end to basically brush over any possible mistakes, right? That was already the case in early 2000s. Now, you know, if I had a watch at hand that I could take them, I would want them to juxtapose the two and tell me why this even looks lesser. And I think it's probably because it's actually CNC operated guilloche rather than hand guided. I wouldn't be surprised because they are cutting corners. Even the straps that you get from JLC, it's not the same quality as you find on pieces that still float in the market with leather straps from 20 years ago. It's just not the same quality. And they should stop that, because they still increase prices at least on a yearly basis, if not more. And they should stop cheating the customers to get that extra bit for the bottom line. I mean, where is all this money going? It's unbelievable.
I don't know. There's a part of me that like I want to be like a young, enthusiastic customer, right? Like I want to be someone who's like, hey, I'm just finding out about this stuff. Like I might not be one of these like Nepo baby fucking like, oh yeah, my granddaddy knew Alberto Santos Dumont. Like I'm not that person. Like I do have a photograph of my grandfather standing in front of a biplane, and he was an early American aviator. Like by all technical descriptions, like my family. But like if I go in and I'm like, hey, like, oh, my granddad, like they don't fucking care. They're like, who are you? Who are you? But so when I start from scratch and when I say, well, I'm this person who actually has been paying attention to everything that your brand has released for years, for the past 3, 4, 5 years. And actually before that, I was paying attention to historical releases. I was paying attention to important collectors, right? I'm looking at the auctions, like I'm
Mhm.
looking at what's happening. I'm looking at the historical significance. Why is it? Why is it that, well, you don't know who I am, but I just laid all that other information out for you, and it's still you just like, well, we don't really care. Like how? I'm just curious, like how many people like approach a brand like that and they get a similar response. And the only thing,
Well, I'll tell you this. I went to the Cartier boutique here after the last Watches and Wonders, and I gave them a little bit of time, right? You know, because I went right after, and I went a month later, and they literally told me, and you know exactly. I want to also just act it out a little bit. This was the sales associate. We don't bring those watches here. We, you know, if you would like to order them, we might be able to order them for you, but you will have to pay in full. And have a nice day, something like that. And you, I mean, look, if that guy were an actual posh person, I would have appreciated and gotten something out of that interaction. But that's just a sales clerk trying to play
Right.
self-important, um, because they don't know anything about the watches. Like, you know,
Dude,
I
dude,
asked a few
that was a
releases.
crazy thing,
They
like, the
have
person who
no
I talked
idea.
to, it was like it's like, you have no idea what I'm talking about right now. Like, it blows my mind to walk into a multi-billion dollar brand with a historical understanding. Like, I have a pseudo
They
historical
don't. They
understanding.
don't have a, but they. That's the thing. Cartier itself, a lot of the sales associates. Again, we were talking about people in luxury sales. A lot of people who work for Cartier, they might be thrown to the watch section, and yes, their watches might be number two in watches, but within the actual physical space of a Cartier boutique, watches still feel like an afterthought. The sales associates they have are absolutely illiterate when it comes to watches. They don't know, forget about the history of the brand. They don't know anything about the current releases for the most part. It's depressing.
So it blows my mind that like you go into this space, right? And you're this person, you're like, oh, I like this, I like that. Like they even, dude, they fucking screened me before I even went there because I registered my interest online, and
Okay.
they're texting me. They're like, what are you interested in? I'm like, this reference number. So my frustration is there was no, I wasn't telling them, oh, I don't know, I need to come into the store and then I'll tell you. Like, this is what I want. Like, full transparency, like, I'm looking for this. And they didn't say we cannot provide you with that, or that's an application piece, or you got to wait, or we don't really know. There was none of that. Okay, cool, come in, we'll talk to you. And then when I came in, I met the person, and we're texting, and it's the whole thing. Like, oh, you want a coffee? They sit us down, they make us coffee. They with the template, you know, the spray, the happy holidays, the card, like all the logos on the cappuccino. The whole thing. I'm like, oh,
Right.
this is great. We get cookies, we get a cappuccino. Like, oh, it's so nice, you know. We're waiting and waiting and waiting. And it was the same shit, like, you know, Santos, like whatever, like stainless Santos that's on the website. They had the 41 mil Pasha. They didn't have the pink dial, so it was just the opaline, like the standard, like white dial, like big 41
Okay.
mil Pasha. And I was like, oh, I really wanted to see what that pink color looked like, you know, like that's really what I wanted to see. And so, you know, they bring over whatever they had in stock, and we look at it, and like I got my tank on the table because I wore my tank, and I had my date just because I was going to see my guy who sold me both of those. So I had both pieces. It's like I
Mhm.
got this and that. So they, you know, and I don't know, maybe that was a little crude. Like maybe it was me being like, yes, like I could buy this, so whatever. But I wanted to let them know, like, I'm a fan of the brand, got the tank, you know, I got another thing here, but like I'm trying to get this. And you know, eventually they just came over and they're like, yeah, that I just talked to the lady, and you know, or the manager, and just nope, not gonna happen. I was like, huh. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I thought it was, you know. And so this was after already like full transparency with them about,
Mhm.
and like that was the thing that's so surprising to me. So from day one, I told you this is what I'm interested in. You're like, okay, cool. Like we'll have you come in. What else are you interested in? I also told them, I was like, maybe I'll buy a pen. Like there's a couple, like maybe I'll get some of these earrings. You know, I even like I feel like they have this whole person. Like you go in, like, oh, so what's your profile? Like, what are you just? It's like, oh well, I like. There's a couple of earrings from the Love collection I'm interested in, but I really want to find out about this. That's the reason why I came in here. And I don't know if it just at one point in time they're like, we just don't want to deal with these people. Like, fuck them. Like, maybe that's what it was. I just have no I have no idea. But they never came up to me and be like, which pen was it, or like what earring was it? It just at some point in time they're just like, yeah, get the fuck out of here. Like, you guys aren't spending enough money, you know? And that to me is like, it's very frustrating because like I'm talking to the person who's the representative of the brand. And I get that, like, okay, I'm not coming in and being like, here's $50,000. I'm a stranger, here's $50,000. I'm never going to do that. But I'm coming in and being like, I actually really love you guys. Like, I love your history. Like, I want to talk about like Louis Cartier's design. Like, I want to talk about the difference between like the New York Cartier and like the London Cartier. And it just,
No,
like,
I
at some point,
mean, some brands are like that. Again, I went down that Richmond lane, but I'm gonna go back to Bulgari, for example, right? Whenever I go to Bulgari, you know how much I like the Octo
Mhm.
Finissima as a design, and they came out with a pink dial that was initially a US limited edition, and then it's now part of the product line, right? And before that, there was something that they did with brushed, unbranded salmon dial for Pisa Orologeria in Milan. Anyways, so I came in, I said, I saw that. I know, you don't have anything like that. Oh, they were like, no, we have something coming out as a US limited edition, and I'm like, okay, I might be interested in that. Can I see something? Do you have a visual? And no, when we have it, we'll send it to you. Anyways, they sent something. I went into the boutique, and the whole talk was like, oh, yeah, I mean, I talked to you about it, but this is not really something we can sell to you because you have not bought any jewelry or watches with us before, and this is a limited edition. And I literally told them, like, what?
Excuse me.
Like, you just wasted my time and brought me into the boutique to tell me that you can't sell me this. And she was being nice about it, so she said, like, would you like to talk to the boutique manager? And I said, yeah, of course. And the minute she started saying things, I said, like, look, let me not waste your time, and you don't waste mine. I'm a watch guy. I don't I'm not engaged or married or whatever at the time. I said I'm also not interested in any of your jewelry, even though I like them as aesthetic objects. I'm not gonna buy anything from you. I'm not gonna buy another watch from you. If you would sell this watch to me, I might consider buying it. But I feel like, the conversation we already had, if I can buy this watch, I would rather buy it on the secondary market, and I know I can find it
Right.
at a half price. And then we had a very nice conversation. It
Yes.
wasn't about watches. It wasn't about Bulgari. It was about, yeah,
Yeah.
we
Right.
we
Right.
know
Right.
we know we have a hard product to sell, and now we know that and what can we do? At the end of the day, we are just employees of this luxury giant, LVMH in that case, Richemont in Cartier's case. And at least, again, the least they can do is
I mean,
know the product, which Bulgari did,
oh, dude, like
and
I
be
just
honest.
it, it I guess it's funny. I'll tell you the story about. Well, I already tell you about my friend who works for Richemont, who I might
You
be.
did.
I'm Saturday, possibly
Okay.
Saturday,
Okay.
and I'm very excited about this. But if it doesn't happen on Saturday, I will be very disappointed. But one of the reasons why I want to have the conversation on Saturday is because I put together this whole presentation for all those watches that I
Uh-huh.
told you about for her. So her client's husband is turning 60, right?
Right.
So like there's all these, and it's like I had this whole exercise like in my mind. I kind of want to share it with you, but I'm a little embarrassed because I did it late at night. So she was just like, "Holy shit! Like you put together a PowerPoint, like it's amazing." But I was like, I actually, I kind of want to share this document with you. I'm curious to see what you think, and I don't want it to be public, but I wonder where I fucked up because there were moments where I was like, I'm in the zone and I'm focused now. And then there are moments where like it's really late, but like I just got to get this done. But so I was like including all this commentary on these like icons, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like the patrimony and the reverso and the Longa One and the day date and the Santos. I think that was like the full spectrum. I think it was like a
Mm-hmm.
five piece thing. Um and but it was really interesting to think about it like, oh, okay, like I have to pitch this to somebody who maybe doesn't care. Like maybe they don't care whatsoever. And so that was my process. Like so I'm pitching this to someone who the stuff that I normally care about that means something to me that this person potentially doesn't care. Like this person doesn't care that like this watch from the early 30s was designed for polo players and has like a reversible case to like protect the crystal from impact,
Yeah.
right? You know, like who cares about that? Like I don't know, but to me that's
We do.
fascinating.
Yeah.
I know, I know. But it, the the evolutionary design of that product and how it's gone through all these iterations, like that's just so fascinating. So yeah, like I care, I care, like it makes sense. Like I care about this shit. But who else? Like I don't know. Does someone read that and be like, what the fuck? Like I don't care. Like I don't know. But I put together this little presentation, and although it was rough around the edges and I didn't edit it, I took some pride. I took some pride in it. It's nice to take a retrospective look at the things that you care about and you're passionate about, and this forum where yeah, it's live stream and it's recorded and everybody could go back. That's one thing, but like when you have a document where it's like printed text that you can look at, you know, that's also that's a different thing. So um, maybe one of these days I'll get you to I'll get you to review it and see what you think and
Sure.
give
Sure.
me your take. But listen. I always appreciate your feedback, and your commentary, and I'm happy that we got a chance to connect.
Um, the feeling is mutual. And again, like, I think I would have one, kind of one part of commentary about the PowerPoint presentation and one part of commentary why it's probably an awful idea to bring to a date. But that's another conversation altogether. I,
Yeah.
I I would leave things to the natural flow of the conversation. But then again, I had, I have my, well, I mean, I don't know if I have any other side than being a nerd, but I was also in certain points of my life much less boisterous and much more socially awkward than I still am. So I do remember a few times Like when I did things like that, you know, that the way you are describing, like, you know, I would go on to this almost trance-like situation where I would talk about something that's very passionate to me, that the woman is not at all interested in. And sometimes they find something incredibly attractive about that,
Right.
that
Like,
someone
oh
can be
man, this
so
person
passionate.
actually loves something. Like they have the
And
capacity to love.
I
That,
have
bro,
I have
that shit is crazy. That shit is
okay, now
crazy.
you are getting too carried away, but
No, but it's real. But it's
I
real.
did stumble into pussy like that a few times at least. You know, like I didn't find love like that. Don't you know? Don't trick yourself
No.
into that
No,
yet.
it is real. It
But
is real. Like Pat, no,
yes,
listen.
you
Like
can
it,
do that.
I apologize for interrupting you, but I do think like I was on that wavelength, and I think that I'm not advocating for people just geeking out for the hell of it. However, there is a moment when you can see a type of passion in someone that does not exist elsewhere. It's pure. Like it is something that resonates in that individual that
Absolutely.
maybe is not, oh, I'm regulating this in a way that society deems as appropriate. No, I'm existing in this space. This is me. I feel this way. I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks
Exactly.
about it. And
Exactly. I
as a
think
matter of fact, I'm not even thinking about anybody else. I'm just doing me. That is beautiful.
sure. Yeah. I mean, I think authentic presentation is always great, but you know, mind you, it's also a social interaction. So, you know, yes, you do things for yourself and you want to be yourself, but you know, obviously that self has to be somehow infracted by the person who is there and by the space that you inhabit. But once again, I will say this: the important thing is, um, if you have that sort of authentic passion, that will translate, whether they like it or not, whether they will find something charming about that. Um, that is on their end, but I don't think it's necessarily wrong. Even though I feel, you know, from my experience now, I feel it's better to leave things to the natural flow of the conversation and have your passion reflect like that. As I said
Hey,
in the
white
past,
men, you got to remember, bro.
unintentionally,
Dude,
I have been successful with the methods you have described as well.
you got to remember, bro. I'm just fucking dipping my toes in the water. Like, I'm just getting into this shit. Like, I've been
I
for like
know.
the past 10 years, dude. Like, I had 7 years on, 1 year off, 2.5, almost 3 years on. So, like, I'm
Yeah,
coming up on like 11 years. It's like, and it's also like, it's an interesting time. So, it's like, yeah, I'm not 40, but like, I'm almost there. Right.
and the
And
world has changed. Like in terms of dating, the world has changed in the last 10
I know,
years
dude. I haven't even got,
for
bro.
sure.
Like, I wish. I wish you could see when I go out and I walk. When I go out every day. I make it a point to go out at the end of the day before the sun goes down. I walk through the park, take a nice long walk,
Yeah,
and it's not like I'm not doing it for fitness. I just do it just to enjoy the beauty of New York City. And it
it is
like
a beautiful city.
where I am at right now, like I'm in a place that I've never been before. I've lived in the city for 20 years. I'm in a new, and it's like this is like it just the depth.
And you have moved recently enough, right?
Yeah. So the first year that I was in this place, I was basically commuting to be with, with my ex partner, right? So like I've been in a neighborhood that I haven't actually really explored, but I've kind of been here. Like my shit has been here, my clothes have been here, like everything's been here, but like
Mhm.
I haven't been here. I haven't actually really been in the neighborhood. So I'm just now being like, oh shit, like there's like this beautiful amazing, diverse, like multicultural, just incredibly. I don't even know how to describe it. It's so cool, and and I'm actually just like I literally just feel like I'm dipping my toes into it, but at the same time, it's like, oh fuck, like I'm in triage, right? Because like I'm recovering from, oh, you got to get out of this other thing. But like you got to have that process, like whatever that process is, to like get you to the place where you're like, okay, I'm ready for the next thing. So I do appreciate your comments and your criticisms. And when you say it, like what you said, what you just said to me, God damn, it's like that's exactly what I need to hear, because it's totally valid. Like, yes, that like be less neurotic, be chill, be in the moment, just like enjoy what it means to be alive
Yeah,
and just have.
that's it. If nothing comes out of it, that's what I mean. I don't, I've never, I think these things are so personal. It has, like you said, it has a lot to do with where you find yourself in life. Did you just come out of a relationship? What are you seeking? That's why I've always looked at this whole space on YouTube, the so-called manosphere and dating advice and pick up whatever. I think all of that shit
I
is
know it's
disgusting.
bullshit. It's bullshit. It's all
We are,
bullshit.
so we are. I know when we're on a live stream and we're talking about these things, and we do it in a way that friends do, and I joke about, stumbling into this or that. People might get the wrong idea, but I'm just sharing, from my perspective to yours, from one friend to another. So it's not like, some ground shattering um, revelation. But at the end of the day, yeah, like you said, just look for a way to enjoy yourself, and
Y-
and if that involves
y-
literally a PowerPoint representation uh,
y-
on a couple of watches, on
Bro,
5
like
watches, in fact,
you know,
do it.
what I love. You know what I love about this process is like I don't give a fuck. Like I'm just. It's like I like fucking up at the beginning. Like I like failing miserably. I mean, I remember like I texted you and I was like, dude, like I bombed. Like I took this massive nosedive, and I don't know if I'm going to see this person again. But all I know is that we like I think I'm going to see her on Saturday. Right. So it's like,
Well, again, like, I'm so conflicted about this overall, because on the one hand, I want to be an optimist, right?
uh-huh.
In the sense that I think, one should still give oneself the chance to fuck up, the just the opportunity to, like you said, be your authentic self, screw things up once every so often. The skeptic in me, and again, I'm not saying this
Mhm.
from a red pill perspective, whatever that means, uh, but the dating scene, you can always stumble into the right person. Again, we can always be that fortunate. But overall, the dating scene has become so viciously
Ah, dude,
competitive,
dude, it's so
so
fucked up.
so
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 fucked up.
seized by this idea of that everyone has a wealth of options.
Uh-huh.
Most, I mean, it can be the same for women too.
Well,
So I don't speak to their experience, but for men,
mhm.
you never get a second chance basically anymore. That's
So
it. That's it.
so
For the slightest thing that might
I
be a little unique, a little quirky about you, certain people will
no,
write you
no,
off,
I
go
appreciate that,
off
but
with the sunset.
what I will say about, and for me, these experiences, what's funny is like when I met this person, so we had this experience where like I told them, and I like part of one of the reasons why I feel like I probably could have done a better job is that it's like, oh, I'm just oh, I'm just like I'm being uninhibited and free spirited, and like I'm drinking a lot,
Mm,
right? And so for me, it's like that's a way for me to build up this barrier, because in a way, it's like you're not actually getting the real me. But I think the other person is like they're just asking me more and more questions. Like, oh, well, what about this? What about that? Like they're just asking more questions. So what I realize is like, well, I'm not asking them questions, right? Like I'm not asking about them, but it's their way of probing me and trying to be like, well, what's up with this person?
mm,
But you're not actually getting me, right? Because like if we're not connecting on a level where like I feel comfortable with you and I feel safe with you in a way where I don't have to keep preventing myself from opening up, you know. Sorry, I don't know if this makes sense, but I had to think about it because it was the first time, right, that I met someone in a really long time. Like I've been talking like 3 years, and it's like, oh, I'm nervous. Like I don't know, I don't know what to do. So all this stuff comes into play. So this idea of like, well, you get one shot and that's it. Like you only get one chance,
yeah.
and you can't fuck up. And at the beginning, I was like, "Oh, well, am I okay? Am I fucking up?" And then like, they're like, "Yeah, yeah, you're good." I was like, "Okay, well, maybe I'll fuck up later." And then, like, as the night went on, like, I felt like it's almost like I projected, like, it's almost like I wrote that into the scene. Like, "Oh, you're now allowing me to like go." eh, Like there, I don't know what else to say. Like, it's interesting to see someone just be like, "I'm just gonna sit back and watch this unfold," right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna do what I need to do, and like I'll have these little droplets and see what ends up happening. That to
Can
me is
I
really
can I
fascinating.
say something from, from a different sphere of life to kind of reflect on that? Have you ever done acting at all at any level?
Never, never.
Okay. Um, so when you get a script, when you get like a few lines from somewhere just for a scene, you read through it, you absorb the information, you get an idea about what kind of story you are telling. And sometimes there are a few obvious things you can do to tell that story, to embody that character, to act like that character as it's written. And some of these things are too obvious, right? And those are called traps among actors. So I'm sure you already got what I mean to say,
Right,
but
right.
to just spell it out, um, in social interactions too, sometimes people basically test you by doing those things where you shouldn't do the obvious thing, right? In the sense that they might seem like they're interested in
The
uh,
testers, listen, bro, you fucking know me, man. Like, it's like,
letting you.
I don't wanna fuck with those people. Like, I get it that, like, there might be a manipulative aspect and, like,
No, not even that though. In the sense that, like,
but you
some,
I'm
but you're
sorry,
being
like, I
autistic. You are
I'm
being autistic. That
no, no,
that's not
I'm
that's
sorry
not
to inter
manipulative.
I'm
That's
s
not manipulative. No, but you're mistaking it and taking it somewhere else. So I don't want you to do that. It's not manipulation. Sometimes people just send out a feeler and have you react to it. And sometimes the obvious thing that you think is being asked for is not exactly what you should do.
Okay,
Um,
those type of people who are doing that type of analysis and they're not allowing uh this is a much deeper conversation, which I want to continue. But
yeah.
those type of people who are like, oh, by that response, like the idea that someone like, okay, this person who potentially is experiencing a certain level of insecurity and anxiety, who might be under the influence of alcohol, I'm now going to probe them in these very specific ways and
Mhm.
then use that as an analysis to base my judgment on them as an individual, and that's going to shape my entire understanding of how they function
That's what
in the
most
world.
people do, man. It's
I
well,
know. So listen, that may be the case. I've had that experience with people, and what I've realized is like that's not what I do with people, right? I'm interested in seeing
okay.
someone in that state. I'm interested in seeing someone in another state. I'm interested in seeing someone maybe when they're right in the morning, they just woke up, right?
Mhm.
Like they're fresh. Like they're uncompromised. Like this is the person, like they're ready to go. Like bring on the world, give me everything. That's
But
beautiful.
yes, but there is a reason why there's a natural history of relationships where you get to that level as things naturally unfold, right? You know,
Sure, sure.
you don't show yourself before you do your morning rituals and have
I
your
know
cup
it.
of coffee
That morning
on the first,
uninhibited person who is just ready to take on the world. That's a beautiful.
which is fine. Maybe that is your best. I don't I don't know that, but what I'm saying is a lot of times you don't show those most vulnerable, most exposed versions of yourself to the outside world, even to a potential lover or suitor or partner. You give these things a little bit of time. So, as interested as that person a, might be in seeing that, or as interested as you might be in seeing that, sometimes it's just too soon to be that
Bro, I it's like
unguarded.
I wonder if that was so like my ex, and like I'm really
Okay.
trying not to talk about her, but this person, it was like w we met online, right?
Hmm.
We FaceTimed a couple times, we talked, like, but like I remember when she walked around, like I got to the restaurant early, so I'm standing outside, I'm looking down the block, and I see this person from down the block. Like I watch her walk around the corner with her hair and her flowing outfit and everything. And I immediately knew, like, I saw this body from down the fucking block. And I was like, holy shit, like, that's her. Like, what the fuck? And so I see this, like, abstract form in the distance. And I'm like, that's her. From because we already, I see the hair, like I see her skin tone, like I see her outfit, the whole thing. And the closer and closer she gets, and my fucking smile, like I'm just, it just gets wider and wider and wider. So I'm like watching her walk down the block, and I'm just smiling more and more and more. And she walks up to me, and I just hugged her. I gave her a kiss, and it was just ear to ear, like the fucking like we're just grinning. And I mean, I get that, like, this whole slow roll, like, "Oh, you gotta play it out." But my experience with this person who I had this incredible, like, deep, like, real fucking intimacy,
Right.
I can't even begin to describe what it felt like with anybody else in my life, the way I felt it with this person. That's what it was like the first time I met them.
Yeah. But
It just it was so strong. It was so intense. So I just wanna listen, I have to go. Like, I gotta break.
no,
I
no, no.
love this. No,
You
no,
can't.
I
No,
have
no,
to,
you can't.
I have
No,
to.
you can't. No, you can't. You have to give me a sentence. Because you're basically now, because you are so fresh out of this relationship, you are basically programming yourself to find an alternative to it, to find a replacement to her. But the thing is, that person is unique. That person,
Right.
as you know, we are at the end of the day all snowflakes, right? We
Yeah,
really
yeah.
have our own
I know,
signature, our own
snowflake
singularity, our own unique qualities. So the way you bonded with that person does not have to. You might figure out that's exactly what you're seeking in the future as well, but it does not have to model every single relationship you will have from now on. You cannot just use that person, and I'm not
No, of
trying
course,
to
of
be
course, of
mean,
course.
just objectively describing it. Especially, you cannot use something as a golden standard
No, I would never do
as
that.
something that has failed
But
as well. Keep
right.
that
So,
in mind.
yes, of course. So, however, I mean, like you hear these stories about people that meet each other and they just fuck, like, and like that's just it. That's like really hot. That's like you, like, yes, okay, maybe it wasn't intended to be forever, right? But I don't know. I mean, it's like, talk to the person, like, try to understand what it is that they're into, like, understand like that full spectrum of what it is they want. I think most people, if they're like, yeah, I don't want, like, this isn't like, I don't know. I feel like the transparency thing, I feel like it's pretty obvious. Um, but
Yeah, well, people have different pace, different frequency. Maybe this person will get to that level with you after second, third, fifth, 10th date. You never know. Just let things unfold. Like, do not expect the same thing in, like, the rom-com meet cute in every single thing. What the fuck? Are you a teenage girl or something? Get out of
I'm
this
I'm trying to
mindset.
get back in my teenage girl scene. But
Get out of this mindset, man. It's that was a beautiful thing. It has happened. You lived that a few years, but now it's done. You have to
I
look
know
for
now I'm a
something
now I'm
else
a
now.
fucking old man.
No, you have to look for something else, something new. Don't imprison yourself in that, in looking for the same thing over and over.
No, like, listen. All right, we're gonna continue this conversation.
I know.
Not right
I
now,
know.
not right now. But I'm like, very excited to tell you about this because there's like I like the past couple of months. I bet, like, I haven't been around. That's been sad. It's been sad. Like, I wish I could spend more time with you. Like, I wanted to do that too, but I couldn't. Like, I'm here now. The reason why I'm here now is like I'm in a better place, right? So like
That's great.
I know I want to share that with I want to share that with you. I just want to let you know, like, moving forward, like, I don't know where the fuck I'm going to be 2 months from now, but right now, this is good. Like, I feel good about this. So like, I'm here. I want to share this with you. I want to tell you more of these stories, and I want to send you these pictures of these insane watches I tried on tonight, which I told you I was like gonna send these. I tried on my fucking Grail tonight, bro. Like, it
That
was,
must have been amazing.
dude. It
That
was. I know
must have
you've
been
tried them. You've tried them on before, but like this guy, interesting character, crazy character. Just I tried this thing on. Like, never met this dude before. He gives me this insane piece. I'm like fumbling with the strap. I'm like, I don't even know how to put it on, but like I'm gonna send you a picture. So
Please do.
hey,
And
I,
it's
I
it's really wonderful to have you here, and it's always my pleasure. I'm glad we talked about watches, but it branched out to this beautiful heart to heart
hey,
conversation, and I'm thank you for sharing it, and thank you for being here again. I
yeah,
want to see more of you. And unlike some chick you might be dating, I am actually interested in your authentic self, and I'm not
oh, I
trying
know.
to
I know.
probe
Don't
you
don't
or
wor-
anything.
don't worry, bro. It's the real. It's the real. We got the real thing, baby. Check out the Biddy McLean. I don't know if you ever listen to that song, Biddy McLean.
No, I have not.
It's a Biddy McLean, the real thing. We got the real thing, baby. Hey.
See, that might get you closer than a PowerPoint presentation. That
It's
R&B
good.
voice.
Good things come to those who wait. I know your love was worth the wait. My life is complete now that I found you. Check it out,
Amazing.
check it out, check it out, man. It's so good. It's such a good track.
I'll listen to it. But I mean, because after I say goodbye to you, I think now that we had you know, we had the unboxing earlier. We had this great talk. I'm not going to go back to an auction preview. I can do that tomorrow. I think I'm just going to close myself. So, you know, maybe I will listen. In fact, Phoebe McLean, the
All
real
right, bro. Until next time.
next time, man.
God bless.
All right, guys. This was actually great. We had some Cartier rants at the beginning. We had some watch talk where St. Peter was sharing with us his recent experience of an intimate gathering watch meetup in New York City. Listen, I mean, I could try to top that off with something else, but we had such a nice, wonderful exchange among two friends who have not talked to each other, at least not at this level, for a while. And I'm glad I had that opportunity, and I'm glad that St. Peter came out tonight. And you saw the energy at the beginning. It was like link. You know, I want to be on the panel, and you guys know I always crave that sort of company. I always crave that sort of conversation, that sort of interlocutor. So I couldn't pass that up. On that note, we are going to return to the Phillips Auction preview, the number 19. That's going to take place in Geneva on May 11th and 12th. Tomorrow night, 8 to 12, that's what we are going to do. That's what we are going to wrap up. And out of those 218 lots, I think 44 of them belong to the Guido Mondani collection. Whatever you think of the books or of the personality of the collector, some of them are genuinely interesting pieces. And since they have all been cataloged in these books that have been propagated so widely, a lot of them are quite iconic, canonical, as it were, when it comes to especially Rolex collections. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. Thank you so much for being with me. Thank you for your presence and support. Please share the link. Help us expand the community that comes together only for watches and style, only for the passion about wristwatches and knowledge of them. YouTube offers you a few different options to support the channel, and I thank Dexterious as well as so many others who have super chatted, and my new member MCM, who has become an initiate at the beginning of the live stream, or rather at the end of the first one. So check out the unboxing if you haven't seen it from earlier tonight. I'll be with you tomorrow live. And until then, I hope you stay safe, stay healthy, wear and enjoy your watches. Take care, guys. Hit the like on the way out.